Computer. Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is Adara. That's me. And I'm here live with my dear friend, Seryna Myers, who is a sacred soul mentor. She's just right there, my girl. And she has come a long way in her journey. We've known each other for a few years, and it's been so magical, Seryna, to watch your transformation. You're like a butterfly, and
Thank you.
you're constantly flying. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've landed where you are now.
I am, I've had a weird journey, actually. I came from a pretty tumultuous life, and one that was really like according to the plan that if only you just followed XYZ, then everything would be happy. You could overcome your childhood, and that's the recipe to happiness. So I chased that and it didn't really work out. And I started through that process of really having this very spiritual personal life and this really polished, like trying to force myself to be perfect professional life. And the two of them were always really incongruent. And it was through starting my own business that I started to recognize that like the magic of what I do and how I show up in the world is really in integrating my whole self. So it was more unpacking, more unfolding. It's funny that you talk about the butterfly, because there is these moments of being in the chrysalis and just sort of letting it all go and turning to mush and then reemerging. But I feel like I've been like multiple butterflies at this point because it is this ongoing process. And now I get to take all of the stuff that I do in my personal life and bring it into clients so that they're able to access their own truth, where they're able to tap into their divine connections and their intuition and really use those tools to flourish in their lives and in their leadership. It's been, sometimes I'm still like, wow, is this my life? Like, it's been a blessing.
Absolutely. You and I are on a very similar track, and it's so cool to just have peeps in my world that are doing similar work because it's so
Mm-hmm.
nice to be able to banter. But yeah, today I was like, I really want to help women do their soul work. And it's such an interesting integration to be able to take sort of your spiritual divinity and be able to move that into your business. And I feel like that's what these times are calling for. No longer can we do business the way we were. It wasn't working. It's not sustainable.
It wasn't. And I think we've known that, particularly as women and spiritual entrepreneurs. I think we've known it for a while. But when COVID hit and all of our systems came down, and like it was very clear that we had to actually find ways to work together and to do work in a really heart-centered way instead of it just being dollar bills. Not that I'm against making money, like I'm definitely pro money, but you can make money and still be a human being at the end of the day. And I think as awful and challenging as COVID has been for us, I think it actually created a lot of space for people who are doing work like us and the work that our clients are doing to be able to show up as themselves and with more meaning, because they had permission now to fly their freak flag, so to speak.
Oh, I love that freak flag. Bring it on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit though about how so true we are very much being called to really lead with the heart, to see the human race as one. I don't even like the word race. I was saying earlier on my other one, it's like we're just beings. No
Mhm.
one's winning this race. It's like we all just need to integrate. Are you seeing in this industry of light workers, let's say, this idea that we just need to kind of keep, like, things have been upsetted. There's been this upset in a lot of different areas. And
Mhm.
are you seeing sort of like a whitewash, if you will, or like, an idea that, oh, everything's good?
I actually don't see that it's everything's good. I feel like it's everybody has just sidestepped. Like they're like, that's going on over here. And somehow people have bought into this idea that if they just create this little love and light bubble, that everything will be okay. And they'll welcome people who are like them and who think like them and who don't challenge their beliefs into their little bubble. And then they can all create that bubble together. But now we have these little silos. And the whole thing that's so funny is that these are the same people who, when we were doing things as it was before, who were preaching unity, who were talking about how we needed to come together. But now that together is full of conflict, full of uncomfortable conversations, full of confrontation, because we're having to face a lot of stuff and a lot of hard truths right now, where we say, oh, that's low vibe and that's not spiritual. So I'm just going to sit here and sit with my affirmations and sit with my prayer, and that's going to be enough. And I feel like we're really, as light workers who choose that option, they're choosing a disservice to the work. Because yes, we need prayer and we need love and we need light. We need good vibes and energy and whatever. but we also need to like not like hoard it to ourselves in these little silos, in these little love bubbles. We need to be working with that out in the world. And we can't do that so long as we're denying that all the other stuff going on out there is taking place.
Totally love what you were just saying. So it's like this privilege bubble, and
It is privilege. It really is.
and you're totally comfortable and totally loving it when you get to kumbaya, like we were saying earlier, with our people, which
Hmm.
we are attracted to because we're kind of all on the same wavelength or whatever. But then if you're just hanging out there and you're not getting out there to do the work, then what good is that? How are you contributing?
Well, that's exactly it. And yes, you're contributing to your little tiny pocket. But the thing is, I believe if someone answers the call in their heart to be a light worker, it's not supposed to be just about their immediate peeps. It's supposed to be about the world as a whole. That's why we do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of courage. And I think some of it is also that we are conditioned to believe that like the only way to do light work in a time like this, where there is a revolution that's taking place, means that you need to get into the comments and like write all the angry things, or you need to protest or whatever. There's a quiet activism that is actually really beautifully aligned to people who are really sensitive and who something like a protest would maybe be a bit too energetically challenging for, where we can be writing letters, signing petitions, using our voting, using our dollars to support kind of the world that we want to be in when all of the dust settles from everything that's happening right now. But it's also having hard conversations with like racist neighbors and relatives that you might not want to talk to otherwise. And it's really easy to say that's low vibe, but to stand in truth is about as high vibe as you can get. And so to do that work and to show up and to, even if, as the expression goes, even if your voice shakes, to speak your truth, that is real, that's love in action. And it's scary, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really powerful and really necessary work.
I agree. So we were kind of talking before we went live around anger and how it's so hard to acknowledge the anger
Mm-hmm.
that lies deep within us, and how it's coming out when we're being confronted, say, with some of these hot topics that are going about.
Yeah, I think before we were seeing this current wave that we're in, actually, even before that, because we had another wave of anger with COVID, but anger was almost like the taboo emotion in the spiritual circles. It was the thing that you wanted to deny, you wanted to bury, you wanted to release. I actually did a search on Amazon the other day looking at books about anger, and everything is about managing it, releasing it, transforming it. Nobody wants to sit down and have a conversation with anger and be like, you're here for a reason. What is that reason? And I actually believe that if we're willing to be in that discomfort, so the same discomfort that we would use in conversations about race, for instance, if we can be with our discomfort with anger, whether it's our own or whether it's something that's being presented to us from somebody else on the outside, we can learn so much about ourselves, about our programming. And that's when the healing can take place, because we have so much stuff that's happening in the subconscious or that has been like culturally conditioned into us that we don't even know it's playing out if we're not willing to actually sit down and face it. And so when we do that, when we're willing to be like, yeah, this is awkward and I don't like how it feels in my body, but I'm going to be in this and I'm going to listen to it, we now start to get to know ourselves with more depth and more truth. And so if we say that we are somebody who's always in the heart, who's all about self-love and self-acceptance, but we're not willing to accept our whole selves because anger is low vibe, even though it's a very human experience, well, we're either full of shit or we're in denial. It's one or the other. So this is the invitation to be like, okay, let's actually look at what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for myself, through this time, um, it's definitely been challenging in regards to the programming that and the conditioning that I've had. Like when you wake up to some of the truths of how
Mm-hmm.
things have actually played out over history and time, it's so upsetting and heartbreaking to just be so brainwashed by media and whatever is the narrative that
Mm-hmm.
the masses want us to know, right? And to have this wake up, shake up, like we're talking right now, it does take these light workers to, I believe, we are here to help, spread the word that we have to make this shift. And to do it, we've got to call people out. We got to call the patriarchy out. We've got to call the demoralization of humans out. Like there's just so much that needs to be like hello, excuse me, this is not okay and we need to do better.
It feels almost like a detox, like everything is coming to the surface right now it was always there. I
Right,
mean, we have built, Brene Brown had this beautiful quote, something to the effect of like, the system is not broken, it was built this way,
right.
which is sickening,
Sad. Yes.
right?
That's
When you're someone in your heart and you're sensitive and you're witnessing this and you're like, shit, this is how it's supposed to be. That's messed up. And, what I'm witnessing right now, or at least it feels like it, is like all of the stuff that has always been there is now coming to the surface. And for those of us who have benefited from it, or from those of us who are just intimidated easily, or who are really sensitive, it is hard to be confronted with it. And yes, a lot of the voices that we're hearing right now are super fucking angry. And you know what? They should be. Because this is not just their life, this is generations of injustice that have been taking place. And so we don't get to choose how we're going to receive that message. We don't get to say, when us, whether as individuals or as a collective, have been the perpetrators of this injustice, we don't then get to say, oh, could you change your tone of voice? Could you word that in a way that's more palatable for me? Oh, you're hurting my feelings. Could you be a little bit gentler?
Mm-hmm.
And I know at the start of my anti-racism journey, I felt like that a little bit. I took it all personally. But then again, I was able to sit with that discomfort and be like, why is it personal to you? What are you doing? And did I feel bad? Yes. Did I feel guilt? Did I feel shame? Did I recognize my privilege? Absolutely. But then it was like, well, now what? So if I have this awareness that I'm in this position, what can I do with that? And like, I have a small platform, but I am happy to stand there with a megaphone and a soapbox and shout as loud as I can. I'm willing to have like individual conversations with people where people will get triggered and activated, and they might be pissed off and they might shut down, but sometimes they hear me, or sometimes someone on the peripheral is eavesdropping and hears and says, oh my gosh, that's the thing. And sometimes I am using memes to be able to get that message across, because people can get it when it's humor instead of that hot conversation where the temperature is so much that someone just steps back and isn't receptive anymore. And I feel like, honestly, like, people of color in particular have been doing this work long enough. It's our job now,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yes.
they don't need to keep educating us.
No.
They don't need to keep pulling us into the fold. It's like they can deputize us to go and like wrangle up our people. And
Yes.
we're not going to get everybody. And we have to accept that. But the ones that are willing, let's find a way to reach them. Let's find a way for them to be honest with themselves and what they're feeling, even if it's gross, even if it's uncomfortable, even if they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when the healing begins. So long as we're just being like, oh no, everything's fine. Oh, I'm just going to kumbaya everything away. Well, then we're not getting into truth. And like, change cannot happen in a state of denial. It's just not possible. Not real truth, not real change.
No, absolutely not. No. And the only way you're able to stay in your little humble whatever mode of everything's fine and groovy is because you have the privilege. And
Yep.
that right there is the issue that you need to dismantle, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, very good. So if people, okay, so technically we kind of touched on the anti-racism because that's a hot top. Well, it's fucking hot. It needs to shift. That needs to blow up, and we need to do better. And so that's why that's come to the surface. Environmentally, things are coming up that need to. Our food system is fucking horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like factory farming and all the things. I don't even know. You know what I mean? Like there's just all of these areas that the system has been set up to function this way, and it's so detrimental to our species.
It is. And I mean, you mentioned the patriarchy before, and I'm writing a book on anger. I've been doing this for like 2 years. And as it was at the start of it was when we were seeing all the stuff with Brock Turner. And, even though there were eyewitnesses for someone to still get a free pass, basically, despite sexually assaulting somebody, there's a lot to be angry about in the world, no matter how spiritual you are. And to deny that is to be like walking around. It's not just privilege, it's blinders. Like, you have to like really not be seeing anything happening. You'd have to be completely unplugged from social media. You'd have like, there's no way to be in touch with reality and not find something to be pissed off about, because you're right. The system is not working. It's harmful for us, and it's not sustainable the way we're going right now on so many levels, in so many ways. So then it becomes, okay, great. So there's all these injustices. There's all this harm being done. Like, what are you going to do with it? And I think that beyond the teaching elements of anger, this is where it can become really, really wonderful fuel. Because if we allow it to consume us, If we're just like, well, I guess I'll just like, if we go to apathy, well, it's shitty anyway, but it's shitty for everyone. Like if we take that approach, we're just going to sit down and watch the entire human race burn to the ground. Whereas if we can instead stand in our discomfort, our anger, and whatever at the injustices and at all these things that are taking place that are detrimental to us as a race and as like humans, where we can say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm going to start making changes. I'm going to go to the protests. I'm going to find the people. I'm going to start the organizations. If we back that emotion, that helplessness with action, well, now anger is fuel. It's not something that is inconvenient. In fact, it's actually going to move change forward.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. I know for myself, I can't really recall an anger in itself being the primal emotion that I've had through these times, but it's definitely been this like openness that I've had, and then seeing the block that comes up when something kind of comes at me, and then seeing the block and seeing the block and seeing the block, and then being like, what's that about? And then
Mm-hmm.
so I almost invite people as well to just be open to what's coming at you, even if the blocks are coming up and you can see yourself wanting to defend, but
Mm-hmm.
more so be really curious as to why those blocks got there in the first place.
And why the need to defend. Why is it personal for you? Why can't you? It's asking us, and this is where I think it's a bit tricky, because I agree, but it's asking us to have an experience and also witness it from the outside. And we're not conditioned to do that. Like that's not our natural way of being. We tend to be very like, this is what I know to be true. And we have this kind of linear experience. But what's really beautiful is when we have the ability to see from the outside, like not only do we get to have that awareness about ourselves, but we now have a broadened perspective of everything going on. Because we're not just looking at ourselves, we're looking at the people that we're in conflict with, or we're looking at the state of the world. And it now like broadens our worldview so that we can see like just how much else is going on out there and how much outside of our own lived experience. Because when we stick to what we know to be true, it's only what we personally know or maybe heard about from somebody that we trust.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us are just in our lanes and we're doing our thing and we're really busy and we're not really thinking about our fellow people. And so when we have that ability to step outside ourselves, we get to have a bit more empathy and a bit more compassion. I find this particularly at election time. I like to have, I have like the, where I lead and lean in my politics, but I also have to say, yes, these things are convenient for me, but how does that affect my fellow person? So if I think about like the Conservative Party is really great for business. And as a business owner, you would think, yeah, vote Conservative, but they are so crappy for the people and for social programs and for justice and all these other things that are really deep values for me, more so than what my company can make. So I would never vote Conservative because that's not the world I want to live in. Even though it impacts me personally, I
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to step outside and see that bigger picture.
Right.
And if we can learn that skill, I actually think we do a lot better as humans as a whole, because it's really
Absolutely.
important.
Well, everyone always tells you to stay in your lane, and absolutely not. Get out of your lane and go look at
Yeah.
other people's lanes and go see what is happening, on the other side of the road even, and be open and willing to, almost see the other person as you. And I know that's so difficult to
Mm-hmm.
do because they might not look like you or sound like you or act like you. And I see that even in my conditioning, it's like when somebody from a different culture or whatever has their own way of communicating and their own unique flair. It is really me going like, well, you're not white, like you're not acting white, right, to me. And then I've had to like break that down and be like, why do they have to act white? Why
Mm-hmm.
is that the right way? It's fucked up, right? And so it's like there's all of these pieces, oh my god, that we get to unfold, and we get to reimagine, and we get to re-believe and redo. And this is literally the most beautiful thing I think that we've ever had before, is this opportunity to kind of reset.
I think in our generation, this is the most beautiful thing. Like, I think they saw it in the 60s with the civil rights movement in the US in particular. And then again, like with the abolishment of slavery. And it seems like it comes in these cycles. But for our generation, it's probably the most revolutionary time. And so many people get caught up in like how hard it is and how heavy it feels, that they're actually missing the magic that's taking place. Because the way that people have been rising and coming together has already had impact. We're not talking about things coming later. We're seeing laws that are happening. We are seeing just shifts in mindset and people who are saying, you know what, actually, I was wrong. I'm going to change my mind. Those are little miracles that are taking place
Yes.
that we wouldn't have had otherwise if all these people hadn't been willing to be disruptive, to break the status quo, to shake shit up. And it isn't easy. Revolution is not easy, but it's fucking beautiful.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Honestly, Seryna, you need to keep talking about this because you're so well spoken and you're so eloquent or easy to listen to in regards to the actual topic. You're very informed. Please, I'm asking you to do these more often. Just
Thank you.
hop on a live and give me what you got. So Seryna has a beautiful gift called Move Into Miracles that I will put below. It's a beautiful little opt-in that helps with like seeing the possibility, really, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
it's a 5-day program. So it works through basically all the stuff that's in the way of being able to create a miraculous life. And then you can get into the manifesting element of it. But it's doing this work of looking at our resistance and looking at our belief systems and like digging into all this uncomfortable stuff, because apparently that's what I do for a living. I just make people uncomfortable so they can get to their heart's truth. But it's really like the first 3 days are the heavier lifting of getting uncomfortable and seeing things as they are. But then you get on the other side, which is about creating this beautiful, powerful, co-creative life with the divine that is aligned to your truth, aligned to your purpose. And it's just so damn beautiful. But we often try to skip to the ending, right? We're like, oh, well, just like manifest with the new moon. Yeah, you can manifest with the new moon. But if you don't address all the stuff that's in the way of why you're not living that life right now, you're not going to get super far. So Moving to Miracles takes you through that whole journey.
Love it. Oh my gosh, your aura is very bright right now. I'm reading it. It's just white. I can't get the colors. My Reiki teacher's like, oh, you've got rainbows. I'm like, I can't see that. I can just see a silhouette of white, but I'm working on it. Okay, so that is amazing. Seryna, thank you so much for that beautiful gift. I will post that below. I will add your website. And yeah, I just encourage people, obviously, to always like touch base and to reach out. And if they do really want to see the changes in the world, they've got to do the work, you know? And it's not a one-time deal. It's not take Seryna's program and you're done. It's like a constant daily minute-to-minute practice.
Which is sometimes really annoying and inconvenient. Let's actually be honest about that, because everyone's like, oh yeah, it's really great, and then I'm going to achieve enlightenment. No, it is a lifelong journey. It involves getting awkward at least once a day. But you will, as much as like the trade-off is the comfort element, the more depth and more love you will have for yourself, and your connection to your heart is going to be like totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Trust us, worth it.
We believe it.
We believe in you. All right.
You can do it.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Adara.
I know, and I can't wait. We will hear from you again soon. We've got a little video coming of Seryna, as you can see it. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.